Everyone knows that food is cool. No secret. Eat that food with a bowl and spoon.
This is With Bowl and Spoon, and we're here with Josh Inklovich. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Josh Inklovich. For the last few years, I played the character Mr. Josh, and I operated an urban farm in Garfield and a greenhouse in Lawrenceville on the campus of Goodwill. And for the last 3 years, I've had a hydroponic grow at Passport Academy Charter School and a maker classroom where we made cement stuff, plant pots, and grew plants that we made music with, ate, drank, smelled, turned into jewelry, sold, and otherwise interacted with. Yeah, so that summarizes what the last, I guess that's a decade in a summary.
Yeah, and that's when we met, when you were doing Fit Farm up in Garfield.
The goal with Fit Farms was based on an article I read in Newsweek, let's just say around 2012 or 2013. And the title was called, Can Vets Save Farming and Can Farming Save the Vets? And it was framed around the psychological impacts of PTSD war-torn vets working in the earth. And I had been working in prison reentry for 12 years, realizing that men needed a lot more than training in a skilled trade in a living wage. They needed the care for the psyche that was so traumatized. And I thought, I spent all this time incarcerated myself, 8 years, and 3.5 of those were maximum security prisons in the South, North and South Carolina. So not the nicest places to be a young man growing up. And so I realized that I was healthy-ish at the moment, and that what I've been doing is growing my food without pesticides and herbicides, eating food that was without pesticides and herbicides, eliminating fast food and factory farm food and alcohol from my diet, and meditating. And I felt pretty good. And that I needed to go bring that to other people. And so, I made a deal with the Department of Corrections, where I had previously been an employer, and took over the farm to do a mindful urban agriculture prison reentry project. And that didn't work out that great.
We need to unpack a little bit of what you said there, because you're talking about how you're doing the reentry now, but then you were in prison, but then in between there, you were an employee of the prison, and so there's just so much to talk about.
And it is really founded in eating healthy foods, that my body and my brain had the proper fuel to grow and heal, and not continue poison myself.
And that's where you ended up.
Yeah.
But this podcast is about people's personal evolution and how they got from there. So could we back up a little bit and start kind of at the beginning? And because there's a lot of blanks in there that I know the answers to, but I think people would be really, really interested in hearing, and you don't have to go in super depth, but where'd you start?
One of my really super early childhood memories, which would be around first grade, I don't have a lot of childhood memories for the most part, was having no food in the house at all, and remembering that there was a cabbage in my neighbor's garden, and I was probably 5 or 6, and then my brother was 19 months younger than me, so he was however old he was, and so I snatched that cabbage and we ate it, and it was raw, and it wasn't completely mature as I ponder it, and who knows, because memory science says aren't completely true, but I definitely do remember stealing that cabbage and me and my brother eating it because we didn't have any food. And that, not having food in poverty framed my childhood until she met a steel worker and married him, and he became my stepdad. And then we moved to the country and raised pigs and ate steak and stuff. And so it was 2 different childhoods.
Wow.
Polish step-grandma who spoiled us so much and made handmade pierogies and nut rolls and all this food from the old country and turtle soup and so they...
That sounds amazing.
It was, the food. It was multi-generational old Polish people cooking, and it was all from scratch, she just cooked so much. And so I appreciated that a great deal, especially coming, mom, single parent, drug addict, alcoholic, just like what that looked like. And so then we raised that pig, and his name was Breakfast. And the butcher eventually came to haul those 5 pigs away, and we kept one for raising it in the chicken coop on the land he bought out in the country. And then I ate smoked bacon from the pig that we fed organic food, like no meat products ever, no butter. Like they had strict vegetable and just a mash diet. So at 10, I had to stoke the furnace and mash the pigs before I went to school in the middle of winter. That was just like life, and split wood and stuff. And so that was, it was 2 dichotomies that framed where I came from with food.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I was a disturbed kid. And so I went to institutions. And so my next 8 years, it was just institutional food. Like, it was pretty bad. Like,
I think a lot of times people talk about how proper nutrition and better nutrition will help with kids acting out. So the food didn't change your behavior in that way.
let's just say I remember that we got barbecue.
You had a lot of other stuff going on, just to say, like, it's not, food is not the sole answer. There's a whole bunch of things that have to be in place, but it's just an interesting.
It was bad.
Well, I mean, when you were on the farm.
Oh.
And that whole, like, you're growing up, you
no,
still acted out and had this history now of...
It was like, now I'd be determined to be neurodivergent. And I suppose, like, over the course, I had a dead thyroid. And so when I was at that age, my immune system was likely in the process of killing it. And so eventually at 14, thyroid surgery, improper balance in the hormones with some ADHD and some autism and some abuse. And you just mix it all together. And
Yep.
You end up in high IQ, conniving, sneaky, fast. I went to the institutions. And so when I was my first job was in a greenhouse. And then, you know, my mom had a big garden when we raised the pigs. And so that framed a part of my childhood. And so there was always an appreciation for good food. You know, when I was in prison, you could either work or, like, the one I went to ultimately in North Carolina, go to school. One of the school classes I was offered was horticulture. And I said, yep, I'm going to do that. And so keep off the yard, sign up for horticulture school. I did that. And while in there, we had the chance to grow fruits and vegetables. So I grew strawberries, jalapeno peppers, cucumbers, tomatoes, and then we had our flower patches that we, like, you know, mapped out according to how tall we thought the flowers were going to grow. And then my hustle would just be taking fruits and vegetables from the greenhouse, selling jalapeno peppers to the Mexican folk on the yard who would give you, it was $1 for 3, pack of tobacco for 3. So 3 jalapenos was the equivalent of a day pay for a janitor. Actually, it was more. I think a janitor got like 63 cents a day. And so I then had that opportunity to add these fresh fruits and vegetables to my diet while in there, and that I grew an appreciation for. So as soon as I got out and I was able to, I had a garden.
And what state were you incarcerated in?
Maine, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and South Carolina. Man, I did a run over my life. So
you had a variety of different environments you were growing in, too.
Yeah. Oh, no. So I grew plants in North Carolina while incarcerated into horticulture until I went to the hole, and then lost my slot. And then when I was in Pennsylvania, after moving to Pittsburgh in Greenfield, where I had an affordable house when that existed in Pittsburgh, and it was a 3-bedroom with a finished basement and 2 bathrooms in the backyard in Greenfield for $650 a month plus utilities. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I actually made money renting rooms out on the place that I rented from someone else. And we had a nice place for a yard, and I had a couple generations of Yinzers living next to me with a 22 and traps, and they would trap the groundhogs and stuff. And so they kept both of our gardens clean.
Did they eat the groundhogs? I'm so curious about that.
No, they just get rid of them. And he would water both of our gardens,
I mean,
too.
they were well fed from your garden, so...
Yeah, but he was good at trapping them and shooting them. That's what he lived for. And that was pretty great to have a Yinzer that he would water my garden for me, so I could just be a mess in my life and just have big bushy plants growing in my backyard and still harvesting my jalapeno peppers and making my own salsa. And so, yeah, that just like, that brought us, you know, I was in my late 20s at that juncture where I was living in Greenfield with a garden.
And then you started working for the prison system?
No, I was after I got out of prison, I became a general laborer in a paint shop after like 1 year at an Italian restaurant where I did learn from the old ladies how to cook everything from scratch. It was in Butler, and it was Natilli's. So the back kitchen, there was an old mother.
Is it still around?
Yeah.
Shout out to Natilli's.
Natilli's, shout out to Natilli's and Vince. Vince tried to keep me from going to the paint shop, and I'm just like, I gotta go, man. I can get benefits in a year.
Yeah.
And I can work overtime, and I can never work more than 32 hours a week here. But I learned a lot cooking in that kitchen, learning from the old ladies that were in the back, and ultimately, like, I got assigned to making specials, to daily specials. So I'd make all those things from scratch, make the sauces from scratch. And then nighttime kitchen manager, and then sometimes training. And that was like, sometimes I would train other cooks. This was only after like a year out of prison. Like, I just worked. If I didn't work in that kitchen, I would starve, because I was certainly poor. And I definitely drink like 50-cent drafts at this dive bar and eat, leftovers and whatever they let us eat there. So then I entered the paint shop, and I was a laborer, and I just showed up to work every day, Shelly, and I got raises. And after I showed up consistently for a month, they're like, "Well, learn how to paint." They painted bridge steel before it became a bridge. Just big girders coming in on trucks and stuff. I'm like, "Oh, I learn how to paint."
This is up in Butler.
Yeah, it's up in Butler. And so I became a painter of industrial steel for industrial and civil projects. And then I got really good at it. And in fact, I got so good at it that the boss in the meeting told the rest of the people not to paint things this good, or everybody's going to expect it. I swear.
So you had to like cause some drips every once in a while.
Yeah, you couldn't
and,
just be like,
or...
you couldn't be giving people five, like, on their tractor yard trailers, like car paint jobs. And like, I'm just gonna do this paint job. And so then I proposed that I don't go
It's
to
where the ADHD comes in handy, is the perfectionism, right?
Totally. Yup. And I ate Slim Jims and Cheez-Its, and I played video games and drank cheap beer, and I painted steel, and that was my life for years. And that kept me out of trouble, and I went to school at night to get my business degree. And
seems like that was your alternate teenagehood.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't have it because you were
incarcerated,
incarcerated, but now you had it.
Yeah. Now I'm like 28. I'm a project manager, and I learned how to estimate, and then I began to do sales and outside sales. There's just like limited potential at the company I was at. And so when that didn't work, I ended up with my largest competitor, who painted PNC Park, and they had the largest crane capacity of anyone in our business, and we had a select group of certifications, so we would compete on major projects. And I'm like, why don't you hire me as your salesman? And we made a commission deal to see if it would work. And I ultimately, like, boom, I was like half the company's sales very fast.
Nice.
Pulled them out of bankruptcy. That meant
Whoa.
expense account. That meant traveling for weeks at a time. And I'm like, oh, I get paid to go eat food. And then I realized, I'm like, wait, I grew up thinking Red Lobster was good food. That was where you went out to eat nice. I'm like, wait, no, I don't think that's real. And so I made it a point to now start seeking out local types of restaurants to eat at everywhere I went. And my territory that I drove was Missouri to Maine to Florida. I never drove to Florida, but I flew down there. I think we'd go further south. I drove to like South Carolina. And so I do big routes, and I just stay in hotels and meet with steel fabricators and engineering firms. And I did that for a couple years. So I traveled around, and I booked big jobs, and I would manage them when I'd be back in the plant, make sure everything's going good, go back out on the road. And then it was like New York City work. Did the top of the New York Times building. Whoa. And it was oil and gas work and defense contracts. And so now you're going to the prime steakhouses, and they're ordering on their expense accounts, which is different than our expense account. We don't buy $200 bottles of wine. We don't eat $150 pieces of meat. They do. And so I did too. And I just learned about good food. I had an expense account, and I'm eating with executives at Chevron. There wasn't a local food movement at this time, per se.
Was this in the 90s, 2000s?
Mid. I got to do a lot of exploring because of the expense account, because of the type of business that I did.
Sure.
And so that just opened my eyes. And I got to explore so much. And then, man, I grew up as a minority mostly everywhere I was, as a Caucasian. And my mom, we were always in low-income immigrant neighborhoods. We were in mixed neighborhoods. And then we're in the country with my stepdad, and that was something different. That was like, we ain't going to talk about that.
Yeah,
and then
sounds real different.
in the inner city Pittsburgh, in the inner city high schools, in the Schumann Center, where as a young white person, I oftentimes there would only be one of me in a unit, and maybe one other white person. And so my culture was hip hop. It was urban. It's like, as an early adopter of hip hop, I wanted to be a little rapper and I write my poems and I tried to dance and stuff. It didn't work. But so my friends were other poor people that didn't look like me. And so when I had my career, my friends were still other poor people that didn't look like me. And I decided to take some of my friends on adventures with me. They thought like, hey, you have a really great life. They soon realized all those hours in the car wasn't that great and everything wasn't great restaurants. But it was fun. Taking some friends to a 5-star restaurant and them just like looking at the menu and just being like, what the hell? Just tell me what I'm eating, dog. And just seeing this cultural disconnect between poverty and class and just like our eating and our dining experiences. So one of the things that molds me, Shelly, is I really think everybody should have access to excellent food that is prepared, like that's relevant to their cultural identity and is going to be appealing to their palate, but just like with those high quality ingredients, with proper technique and the right sauce, because the sauce makes everything, right? But that's not what we get. And so that's been a framing, just like seeing what we get to eat based on how big our bank account is and our disconnection from our food supply, food sources, just ideas of food.
Like we were talking about the cherries today for $10 a quart.
Yeah, $10 a quart versus the pesticide and herbicide laden ones you got to soak in the stuff for $2.99 a pound.
And people don't soak stuff. It's all over the internet that you should, and you go into a restaurant and they're not getting that $10 a quart cherries. They're getting
all these cherries,
the ones that are less expensive and laden with pesticides, and they don't soak. So when you go out to eat, even though it's prepared well, you're not eating the best. So
not always.
Yeah.
Not if you're affording it as a regular working class Pittsburgh yourselves. Except, that's right, we don't have jobs.
That's a whole other story.
That's a whole other story. We're free and sovereign souls. So like that corporate experience opened my palate, and then the defining moment of my food experience in my life was watching that television reporter talk about something I can't remember, but what I do remember are the people in hazmat suits picking the strawberries in the field behind her. And my brain said, Josh, you line chemical process vessels, do lead abatement, asbestos abatement. That's when you put people in hazmat suits. Those are the most high-risk exposure situations to things that kill you. So why is the person picking my strawberries wearing a hazmat suit? And I Googled, because now that was a tool. And I discovered
Thank God for Google.
Yeah. Then I discovered about the dirty dozen. Those 12 fruits and vegetables that you should never eat if they're not organic. Just eat in season and do without the rest of the year. And then I learned about why you should never eat a non-organic strawberry. And I learned about the corruption of our food system and how that all-natural label on the food that I thought that my nice career was affording my family, and that whole paycheck at Whole Foods was disappearing so that we could eat these good things, that they weren't all natural. Didn't mean anything. It was all a lie. And like when we watched that and I did the research, and my partner and I, who now I'm like vice president of business development, I'm balling, working in oil and gas, hiring men coming out the penitentiary, getting on the front page of the paper and in the news and all these different things. And life is just grand. And we're like, she has an autistic child. And he wasn't performing well in Northgate. Now he's doing good in Quaker Valley. And his diet is a thing. It's one of the things that is important in our life. And now we discovered that it's all a lie. And she was an extreme couponer. So we had this whole cupboard full of stuff. And we're like, what do we do? We're like, do we give it to people and poison them? Do we throw it away? We're like, no, we definitely
all
donate
the stuff
it.
that's in the grocery store. Yeah, you're not going to make a dent if you just get rid of that, because it just is everywhere. Yeah.
But we made the choice to donate every single non-organic food item in our household and make a commitment to eating only local organic meat, if at all. I think, no, we went all the way, like can't eat at your house because it's not organic and you're serving us meat, and like converted all of his food to the mycelium patty, like the corn nuggets. So he thought he's getting chicken nuggets and chicken patties, and he's getting all vegetarian stuff.
I remember the first time I tried that corn stuff. It was really good.
Yeah, I like it a lot. There's been great advancements in the vegetable-based ones that aren't trying to be meat, and I like them, but I'll pass on that weird meat replacement stuff.
That's a whole other topic, yeah.
So we had a garden, and then we joined the Sewickley Organic Garden, and then our life, you know, I was a broker. I worked for myself. We had a big backyard. I built my little chicken smoker, and I went to culinary art school at CCAC, and I just like worked on like smoking jerk chicken, making the perfect pie crust, like making the best perfect soup. And we're talking about multi-year processes because this was my life for years. So all I did, I was just like, I ain't got no work right now. I got some contracts. It's residual. I'm just cooking for a couple of days. And so I bake and cook.
Wow.
And I
joined. Good you had that freedom, yeah.
Yeah. And I was a member of the Sewickley United Methodist Church. And then I cooked all the food for the Vacation Bible Study. And then for the cookie walk each year, shout out to Sewickley United Methodist Church. Because like that, you know, is an important place for me to be at that time in my life. And for me, the old ladies at Sewickley United Methodist Church didn't know. That was a competition. And I used to eat.
You were in competition with them?
Oh, yeah. I made 52 dozen cookies. One dozen cookies for each week of the year. And that was my tithe to the energy that I recognize as the Christ. And I would start a couple weeks before, have my deep freezer, and it would be like homemade triple citrus curd shortbread cookies with all organic ingredients. And and then little Josh, he would just be like, like all these. So he's like getting to live the childhood that my step grandmother gave me, because I'm like cooking all this crazy stuff. But a lot of times he didn't like what I cooked. And so sharing that, doing that, going over to Mediterra and harvesting all the bread and bringing the bread to the Hot Metal Bread church community so they can give it to the old people. And just like, she would do extreme couponing, and we would donate, and we would go into a church and we just have bags of stuff, and it'd be a big stack. And then you'd have all the rest of the church's stuff. And we were probably, you know, we lived in one of the least expensive houses in our neighborhood. We
in Sewickley.
Oh, yeah. And we took great pride in the ability to navigate the system and, like, tax Giant Eagle and be able to donate, like, 4 times more groceries each month than the rest of the church put together.
Is that necessarily in the spirit of...
It was.
Really? Okay.
Ish. No, it's just the way it worked out. Yeah. It was just like you would see it, and we would be like, yo, this is incredible. Like, this isn't costing really any money.
Competitive giving.
It was. And she enjoyed doing it because she knew that it was going to Bethany's place or Bethany's house, the child care in Northview Heights, and that these are things that these kids and these women are going to like and they need and appreciate. And so it was just like, you know, that was a descriptor I used, but it was disproportionate. It was pretty crazy. And it was our focus on food. Other people just write their checks, right? For us, we're like, we want to get food, but not the stuff that comes out of the back of the cupboard. Nobody wants the 2-year-old black and white label can of yams. If you don't want that, nobody else does either. And so we wanted other people to have access to things that they would enjoy. And like sauces and like, you know, stuff that you're just like, you're on a budget. You're not buying it.
Yeah.
So that was life for a while, and went to culinary art school, but I just wasn't learning. And then I staged for Chef Chris Bonafili. And at that time, he has Bonfire Grill on Southside now. And then he had B Gourmet, and he had, you remember Avenue B in Shadyside? And it was like, that was his first restaurant. And so he opened a joint out in Sewickley. And he was on Kitchen Nightmares as the consulting chef and Pittsburgh's top up-and-coming chef and all these other things. I'm like, bro, I just work for you for free. I just want to learn stuff. And that was interesting. It was an environment. I learned a lot of stuff. I was just not the fastest chopper. And I definitely, it wasn't. I learned definitely that was not the life I wanted. I really loved the idea of it. I love cooking people food. I love serving people food, but not that. That was way too much. It's hard. I was like 36, 38. I had Sewickley bills. And I'm like, to pay Sewickley bills, being a chef is a path that I probably should have started 20 years ago. And so
were you still working for the steel companies now at this point? Okay.
Full time, yeah. I was like working and going to school full time at night. I did that a lot. I wanted 7 or 8 different colleges or universities, got some certifications, little degree. They like
Yeah.
new interests, autism kicks
Dabbling
in.
in things. Yeah.
It's ADHD times autism.
Okay. On the spectrum too.
Yeah. And so I get passionate fascinations, and then I just be like, maybe that should be my career. So, and so I'd explore it. I did mushroom hunting and smoking, and all types of cooking. And I always liked growing my own ingredients. And then, Shelly, I got the science, and the science said that when you put your fingers in the dirt, that you're releasing the mycelium. We're breathing it in. And the New York Times had an article, it was like on the front page or something, some years ago, and it said, feeling depressed, huff dirt. And it talked about that getting released, and when it goes into us and it interacts with us, it acts like an antidepressant. And I learned about
I wonder if there's anything about, pica, where people eat dirt. I wonder if there's something related to that, as in that habit of eating dirt. People have like an impulse to eat dirt, and it's called pica.
Okay.
But I'm wondering if people with pica have that
deficiency or understanding.
Yeah, that sort of inherent knowledge of, or feeling like I need this.
It's interesting. Yeah, because imagine there are the people that see sense, that hear smells.
Oh yeah.
That have those different the perceptions being intermingled, and could that be a feasibility? Who knows? That correlated with the Newsweek article, "Can Vets Save Farming? Can Farming Save the Vets?" And then I came across what was at that time the world's largest compilation of meditators' brains, fMRI science, and what that said. And it went and they examined prisoners' brains who were just starting to meditate, and the monks of the Dalai Lamas, and I read about the deformity in my own brain personally based on the adverse childhood experience index, and the facts that mine was maxed out. So that says, it just says scientifically that the outcomes of my life are terrible when my brain's deformed. And I knew that logically, and then I realized, what if I'm putting the right stuff in my brain, and then I do these meditative practices that are said to reconstruct the brain, and then maybe I add these meditations with binaural beats and subliminal messages to help change these thought processes and to connect neurons in different places where it's just going to give me a healthier brain. Because one of the things, nutrition being one of these keys, and I'm like, I don't want to be a victim to the ridiculous amount of negligence, trauma, and abuse that little Josh and medium Josh had to absorb, and the abuse that others administered, the abuse I administered, the abuse that I gave myself, that the only way through it was long term, and then it took a literal physical changing of my brain, and that's not going to happen on fast food, and it's not going to happen full of intoxicants, and I need to do that for myself. And so that all these understandings ultimately took me to the jungles of South America, where I did a whole bunch of plant medicines and I ate a whole bunch of things that weren't food to assist with that process. And that those 26 ceremonies in 3 continents and 6 countries with lots of traditions and for hundreds of hours, and all that vomiting and associated activities they go when you're going through these experiences, all required a fast, and they all required a very strict diet that was boil rice, eat fresh fruits and vegetables, it was very down to you can have your teaspoon of honey every 2 days and this much salt a day. I think it was a quarter teaspoon to stay healthy with the iodine. That really involved just getting into the cleanest diet that I could have, so that I could have the best experience and the least drastic purge. And since then, being an urban farmer and the farmers market, Swickley has such a wonderful farmers market that now I'm 47. Farmers market's been my culture for 20 years. It's what I do. It's what I was doing yesterday to get you vegetables and fruits today. And I guess that's my whole food journey.
Okay, so we're back from break. We're here with Josh Inklovich, and we were talking about you did all the chef stuff.
And I did the grow in, and I did the research, and I was working in industrial contracting and booking and managing projects while coordinating workforce development initiatives with the federal and state prison reentry programs here in our area, and then veterans who were returning from addiction and homelessness, which the vets that I hired from Veterans Place were just some of the best employees, and like tragic stories, but exceptional employees. And doing that work, you know, the company was really supportive of this work that I brought into the company. It's like, hey, I'll come take a job with you. He gave me the title of Vice President of Business Development, but you have to allow me to work with returning citizens and people coming out of difficult situations and bring them into the skilled trades. And so we did that. We did it intentionally, and we worked with NCCER, which is the National Center for Construction Education Resources or something. We built a industrial painting project where they get certified, found the grant money that was available based on their specifications, and we started recruiting returning citizens, helping them get situated in the neighborhood if they worked out for a period of time, and just did that. I did that for a while, and I realized my men, I just watched most of them fail, like seriously fail, and I have some great success stories, but I did it for 12 years. I hired and fired hundreds of men, and
wow,
hundreds of men. I'm the only person I know that hired a bank robber specifically because I felt he was smart enough to get away with 7 before he got caught for the 8th, that he could track steel for a football stadium. And his tragedy is he robbed another bank. I transitioned out of the industry. I was working for myself. He went to work for a competitor, and we maintained a friendly relationship. He helped me move. He tried to work with me doing outside sales, but it just wasn't. He was too introverted. And, you know, he was making it. He's out for 3.5 years, and he had some financial struggles, had a good job, but he didn't have an addiction. He didn't have alcohol problems. He had self-esteem problems that were only solved through material possessions. And he robbed another bank to satisfy his need for material possessions. From our communications, I just knew that, and I saw so many of my men fail because they didn't have the supports necessary. They needed more than a job, but the big focus in reentry is get a job. They didn't have tools to maintain the job. They weren't healthy, and we didn't have the tools.
So psychological tools and like
wellness tools.
Yeah.
And they needed more than we could give them. And I just watched them transition from reentry, where they were housed, into the real world where they weren't supervised, and invariably fail over and over and over. And I'm like, you know, my customers have become natural gas frackers. I read the white papers. I helped set up the first frack tank fabrication facility in Pennsylvania, and that was my life. And then I realized this is bad, and I don't want this to be my life. And I realized that my men, mostly, the 85% go back to prison in 5 years or something. So statistically, we realized that in our employee population. And I thought, I'm hiring men that are robbing more banks and killing people to build frack projects so I can earn my 6-figure salary. I don't think that I should be doing this. I meditate, I grow organic vegetables, I cook my food. And that's what I'm going to do for a living. And so I took my relationships and I said, I'm going to be a farmer with people coming out of prison, and we're going to eat apples and meditate. And I got a grant, and thanks Idea Foundry, Mike Matisik, and they gave me some money, and then I didn't get some other grants. I hired a woman farmer, and Goodwill let us use their greenhouse to give workshops to their most special needs population, which was super intimidating. I'm like, what am I going to do? I've never done this. And so I started growing plants, and then we would eat them and smell them. And I had folks that just, every day when I showed up, they loved me so much that I went through some dark times in that period. And just the real struggles of trying to be an urban farmer and make a living was crazy.
You were living in Garfield at the time?
Sewickley.
Oh,
I
you're
would
still
bike
living in...
and bus
that's right.
2 hours in each direction every single day to water my lettuce. I did that. And then I was like, yo, I could just like camp here with my dog. And then my dog died. And I'm like, oh man, it's kind of convenient to camp here. So I must and my house is so liquid, and I go take showers sometimes, just live in my tent. And yeah. But like, I took over the farm.
That's the time that I met you.
Yeah.
You were living in a tent with your dog.
Yep. So I'm like, I had the farm, I had the greenhouse, I had a budget, I had the farmer, doing the workshops. And so I just did that, And then I like sold a bunch of my stuff because we didn't get grants. And the realities of being an urban farmer and making the ends meet, it was just very difficult. And bugs, animals, man, I swear I watched a groundhog climb my fence. And so I'm like, and then the deer. Every time I thought I beat the deer, I'd come in and they beat me again. And I'm like, try again next year. And that, I got beat. Vandals. When I took the farm over, Maria Graziani, who founded Heelcrest and just put so many years in, and so many people put so many years of work into that urban agriculture space. She and I were going to do a deal, and the goal was to bring mothers coming out of prison into the farm space, get grant money to support that so that they could help provide the physical labor necessary to help her make herbal popsicles. Idea Foundry says, hey, we love this idea. We already invested in this farm once. Let's see where this could go. And Penn State said, Maria, why don't you come take this job with benefits? And Maria said, Josh, Penn State offered me a job with benefits. And I have been doing this, and I got 2 kids, and I think I got to go do that. So do you want the farm? And so worked out a deal, went and hired someone. And when I went to take over the farm on the second week, it had a functional aquaponic system, bunch of seedlings, a lot of stuff was in place. And I walked up, had some volunteers, people were enthusiastic to get to it, and we walked into vandalism. It was intense vandalism, Shelley. This is 2 weeks after I took over the space. And some folks came in and they killed all the fish and aquaponics. They cut their heads off.
Oh my God.
They cut all the electronics off. They threw all the electronics in the water. They threw all the seedlings in the water, so they were all submerged. They cut the plastic on the greenhouse. They spilled everything that could be spilled, broke everything that could be broken. And that, I'm like...
And you had no cameras or anything to tell you who did it? It was just...
Guess nothing like this intense had ever happened in the farm space before. And so that's what we walked into. And I just remember stopping to think, this is an omen.
Wow.
Should I quit? And I'm like, no. When she said, do you want this farm? And my brain said, Josh, your life's going to change. And I said, yes, Josh, my life's going to change. I'm like, let's do it. And I just wasn't going to quit. And so we cleaned it up, and I cried and stuff. And
that is heartbreaking.
Yeah. And then on Father's Day of, I think, 2015 or 2016, we go up, got some volunteers, got the djembe, and we got a picnic. And I came back and beat the door to the shed open with an axe. And they destroyed everything they didn't destroy the first time.
Oh, my God.
And I had my suspicions because 3 young ones came up, and they told on themselves. And, I just went to the community.
Did they think it was funny? Were they like, ha, ha, ha?
No, they asked some questions and indicated some things they shouldn't know. And then when I told them about the traps I set on the property and the hidden cameras, they got real scared. They tried to get me to tell them where the cameras were. And I'm like, but then they wouldn't be hidden. And that, I think, random. I didn't really have any problems until the very, very end. But by then, I didn't care. Who knows at that point. But yeah, it was some pretty destructive vandalism. It was heartbreaking. Things just didn't go the way that I thought. But we made it work. And working with the intellectually and physically disabled combined at Goodwill for 3 years for the greenhouse was great. We grew the plants, we ate the plants, we smelled the plants. I plugged the plants into the plant music synthesizer, and when I would do that, some select of my clients would just start vibing and dancing to the plants and weaving and waving and help them plant the seeds, and some of them just didn't have the dexterity to hold seeds. And so it was really really slow-paced without a lot of expectations, except that they have an enjoyable plant experience. And then I had my little greenhouse, so I could keep cool plants and go to events, and I had my plant dome thing on the trailer that went to Farm Aid, and people could sit.
Oh, I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, they could sit inside the plant dome thing and play music with plants and drums.
So you've jumped right into the musical plants, but you haven't talked about how you got there from where you were. How did that come about?
So the disabled folks that I worked with had the most extreme combined I had a woman who just had 2 nubs for wrist, and she had had spinal meningitis and just was she just had so much going on. She just loved seeing me. And when my clients were able to harvest all the herbs and produce that they grew so that we could make from scratch pizza sauce, and Spirit broke out their wood fire pizza oven and donated their time in the dough, and my clients got to make their own wood fired pizzas right across the street. Thank you, Spirit, who has the bestest pizza in the South Side. Is just so far to bike to get to Spirit. And then we made our own pasta. I did a lot of research, and we did an egg-based, egg and semolina flour pasta with the right ratio of egg to egg yolk to flour and water, and that was it. No oil. It was interesting. It was the best. It came out very good.
Yeah.
And we rolled it, and so my client with that disability, where she didn't have hands to grab on anything, you know what she could do is she could catch the pasta dough coming out of the pasta maker and move it out and move it to the next step. And so I had my one friend, his name Jimmy. He couldn't speak, but he could speak to me, and he would say, Josh, and he would wave his hands. And so Jimmy, he's running the pasta maker, and it's just like spitting out. And then he'd stop after every couple turns and put his hands up in the air like, Josh. And so in that period with our team, we made from complete scratch pasta, Florentine, everything we grew with organic butter, and then we ate that, and it was perfect.
Oh my God.
And I'm like,
sounds
we
delicious,
did that.
yeah.
Like, we did that with folks that, like, we could have set up a restaurant or a factory with these folks, I swear, where they could just, like, happily make their pasta because they just wanted to be engaged in something. Interestingly, they used to be the clients that were in the back rooms at Goodwill doing the sorting. But there was an issue that they weren't paid at least minimum wage. And what I came to understand is like those folks didn't care about no money. They just wanted stuff to do. But it took like one person to closely supervise 2 people to even keep them kind of on track. So I don't think that capitalism, that thing properly was able to line up. So my workshops were like right after that was that practice was ended. And so they're like, hey, come, we have our greenhouse. And let's do that. And so I had some really great food experiences. Like we did a lot of food stuff. We turned our herbs into cookies and soda, and carbonated it and made soda. And we listened to them sing to us while we drank them and smelled them, made art with our eyes closed. And like that's what I did. And that was fun. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. And at the same time, I had taken classes at Tech Shop. And I learned how to use laser beams and CNC routers.
The laser beam. I totally forgot about the laser beam stuff. That was great. Yeah. Yeah,
so now I can take my industrial abilities, like the understandings that came from managing large-scale trade projects. And now it's like, hey, I can use the CNC or the laser beam. And so ultimately, I went through the maker training program all the way to the very beginning. And then their next series of apprentices said, hey, I said, would you build this plant dome thing I found the plans for from IKEA through their design studio, Space 25. It was called the Grow Room. And it was like 8 foot by 4 foot or something globe that housed plants all the way around it that you could walk and 5 people could sit inside. And so they said, yeah, we'll do that. And I got the wood. And so we built that, put it all together, got interns, put it together at Shady Side Nursery, sealed it. Then it all fell apart again, and then I had to do it again with anodized aluminum. And we just hauled this thing around on a trailer with live plants singing, just questioning people's idea of how alive is a plant. Would you believe that if I connect this plant's roots and stems to the synthesizer, that essentially its biodata can play the keyboard or the drums or the bass or whatever sound that we wanted to play? People were pretty fascinated, got to travel, do some fun stuff, drag it around on a trailer, different states, and just like, they did that.
How'd you hear about the plant music thing? How did that come about?
Yeah, so the Music of the Plants device is the device I use now. It's musicoftheplants.com, and it has come from decades of scientific exploration and experimentation with the interactions between human energy and plant energy, and saying that music is something that we both can interact with and find this ground. And so they built this device that just plugs into a root and then a plant. But why would I even want to do this? When I was in the jungles of South America, I met people that know American ever met before. They never met an American. They met very few Westerners. And they didn't meet, some of them never met the colonialists. They never met capitalism. They live in a completely different reality paradigm than we do. Their knowledge has been transformed by the pharmaceutical companies into trillions of dollars. And so they talk to the plants and they sing to the plants. And when I drank their medicine, I talked to the plants too. And I sang with the plants. And I said, holy crap, plants are alive. I don't even believe this, Josh. Okay, the plants are alive and they can like make music and stuff. And I thought, yeah, but they're not the same alive to us Westerners. You have a different reality paradigm. It's just as valid. It's not their reality paradigm. We have too much crap in our systems and our consciousness, the poison from our food, just like our lifestyle, all the electromagnetic interferences, that we can't talk to the plants the way they do. And so the plants give them. I interacted with a bunch of travel elders, not some one-off fake wannabe shamans, like the spiritual leaders of peoples, and they all say the same thing. When you ask them, how do you learn anything? How do you know this? Like, the plant told me. Like, how do you know? Read it in a textbook. So when you hear that over and over, and when you hear that the same plant said the same thing to different peoples and different tribes that never interacted before, then you're like, yo, how is this even possible? Like, this is real. The plants talk to them. Like, you can't know this. Like, how do you know all this? They know everything. We would go on plant chores in the jungle where they just tell us about the plants. But they didn't, because they didn't speak a language recognized or used by the West. So it'd be a translator to go from Huni Queen to Portuguese to English. So two translators.
Oh, wow.
To get the knowledge.
Which you got that whole like telephone effect, so.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like the basic understanding of the plant. So I'm sure they were probably giving us the pretty good stuff, the general basic stuff. So that's how they knew. So I came back and I had remembered seeing like a sonic artist who did an installation and used the energy from the plant to create music. And so when I came back from the jungle, my brain remembered that, and it's like, plants are alive. I have to show people. And then when I Googled, I found there was just a synthesizer. It was $1,000. And I remember I had like $4,000 in my life. I had no idea where my income was going to come from. And as soon as I saw that $999 synthesizer, I had to order it. I'm like, I got to order it. And I thought, well, so if I get a musical plant device and then I wire up plants in a big thing, would that make it a living musical instrument? I suppose it would. So then I'm like, well, I got to make a living musical instrument. And I saw the plans for the room. I'm like, oh, this is the musical. This is the singing grow room. It's the living musical instrument.
The dome.
And so, yeah. And
Nice.
so that was, I guess, the evolution was just this recognition that there's something more, quote, alive to the consciousness of the plants than maybe a regular person going about their life might attribute to it. And that maybe if it played music to them, and mainly like kids really reacted well and had some great instrumentalists. We partnered with fiddle players, electronic dance music DJs, and guitarists, and just like a hong drum player to just interact and create music with the plants. And so now that's really what I'm spending a bit of my time with, is figuring out what the next step of making my plant music, and gallivanting across the country on an electric bicycle, recording plant music and eating food, and yeah, doing that.
That sounds great, and you're gonna record that and have that to share with people. So
Yep,
I'll tag
absolutely.
into that once we figure that out. Do you want to talk any more about your bike trip?
So I spent the last 3 years working at Passport Academy Charter School, and it made sense. Things on the farm were transitioned, and it's now the Hillcrest Greenway. I almost vandalized it with my signature. With Nina Gibbs at the Bloomfield Garfield Development Corporation, and with Rick Schwartz's blessing, the executive director there, we put together an idea to just make sure that that land was never going to be developed. And I had to walk away from my attempt at being an urban farmer. I have a brown thumb. I've always had a brown thumb. I'm a terrible plant grower. I am a genocider of green life. I have killed so many thousands, or maybe hundreds of thousands, or maybe even 1 million plants that I was trying to grow to eat or sell. I mean, we're talking about, I killed way more plants than I ever grew. And so I had to recognize that there's just something about, it's just not going to work. I love the plants. I want to interact with the plants.
You did have some success, though. I mean,
Sure.
You were talking about selling some of your jalapenos.
Sure, fail forward.
Eating, yeah, okay.
I sold stuff to Blue Sparrow. He would buy my microgreens. And the last sale that actually the check probably comes for today was to Cafe Momentum in downtown Pittsburgh. And Chef Peter bought our lettuce that were grown with students in the school. And I paid them and I fed them. And then we grew lettuce for a solar punk art show and food demonstration.
That was a fun day. I spent 4 hours there. I thought I'd just stop in. And I was there for 4 hours.
I'd like to say that was like, I was the alchemist. That project was with Nina Gibbs also.
I haven't seen Nina in a while.
So the green zone in Garfield is what the farm, it just became too much. And I realized I was not only did I have a brown thumb, there was just a lot of variables to battle. There was the deer, the vandals that we mentioned, bugs, drought, the cost of water.
Yep.
If we wanted the land, it was probably a couple $100,000 for land. And instead, we came up with the idea to move it into what Garfield already defined as its green zone that they already had a plan for through Evolve Architects, EA Architects. Yeah, and they did the Garfield Green Zone plan, and so now it needed to be and move from an idea of community surveying and expression of these different meetings into a general physical idea plan into a budgeted template that could be followed to actually make a green zone. And with money from the Allegheny Land Trust and with Maria's willingness to negotiate on the price with them and the number of vacant lots and your help keeping the vacant lots as part of a package with the city and with the URA so that there was a big chunk of lots there. And then Garfield worked to identify other vacant green lots in their neighborhood that could be kept green. And so put all that together, it created a job. Now there's a green zone coordinator and the farm won't have a McMansion on it, which there's 20 years of people's energy to grow life. So failing forward from that, it's taking those ideas and experiences and an interest in hydroponics and the realities of the pandemic. They all just collided. And so...
Oh, yeah, the pandemic. Huh.
Yeah. My food interest for the pandemic.
Shifted everybody.
That spring, when we were in it, I decided to just grow seedlings, and I just set up food seedlings, and I just set up an indoor seedling grow, and then I partnered with Darnell Chambers, Airborne Sun, and he was a black farmer, and then I was the white dark elf in the cave growing seeds. And so we took them, and then he would come and just pick them up, and I was growing all these plants. We're talking about hundreds of plants, and actually I didn't kill a lot of these. Although I killed some, but I built 2 tiers, 4 foot by 8 foot per tier, and had lights hanging from all of it in my art studio. And then I just would take care of the plants. And then I'm like, well, that was my therapy. Gave me something to do, plug them in, listen to different ones. Now what? Let me hit up Darnell. He got this Volvo. I think he was driving a Volvo at the time. And he's like, yeah, I'll go deliver them to the different farms. And so then I just donated all the seedlings to the different farms. And he would come pick them up and go drive them all out. And I'm like, what am I going to do now? And I met this principal at a school. And I convinced a young person who I met at an art event to go enroll in the school and finish their high school education. And that school is Passport Academy. And they were the only school in the city of Pittsburgh that stayed open with in-person school. And then my friend, Dr. Maureen Anderson, was the chief operating officer at Voices Against Violence in Beltsover, which was the only full-time youth summer camp to stay open through the whole pandemic. We had strict guidelines. We had people doing patrols and check-ins and masks and distances and all these different things. These kids, they didn't have a place to be locked into. They were often locked with their abuser. They were locked in places where they didn't have any food. So I'm like, I thought, what would it have been like when my mom was dating that dude? I'm like, it would have been terrible. And I have my own spiritual beliefs. And they include that this is a living planet that is conscious, and that we have a connection to and ability to speak to, and that she speaks back, just like the other one, the Christ one I mentioned earlier. I guess that makes me a polytheist. That's interesting. And so, so there's this Mother Gaia, Mother Earth that, you know, she spoke to me and ultimately made me give up my career in oil and gas to go take over a farm. And I have my practice where every day I ground to what I would call the heart of Mother. And it's like a prayer, meditation, silence for me to talk to her and for her to have the opportunity to talk back. Because it would be silly to pray to anything and not believe that anything could pray back to us. So the whole point of it is to get an answer, isn't it? Whoever.
It's communication, mutual communication.
Yeah. So I'm like, hey, Ma, give me some answers. All right, let me ground my roots down into you. And I believe that if she wanted me dead, I would be dead no matter where I was at, period. And that if it came from her, and then it's in nature, so now it's too late. Like, it came from her no matter what. Like, if it's alive, boom. Wouldn't matter if it was modified, original, natural, nothing. It doesn't matter. Like, it's still part of her. And that if she wanted me dead, I'd be dead. And that I felt that life had been compensated to a point. I had a near-death experience or two. Like, I was in the hole, and I saw the light diminishing, and it was quite terrifying. And so my life flashed before my eyes, and I was deemed lacking. And my consciousness knew that if I died, it was bad for Josh. The energy that Josh put into the world wasn't okay. This is the early 30s. Now I'm 47. Well, in the pandemic, I'm like, I knew what my energy and my intentions were. And so I was okay if it was just time to go. And that if I went, because I was in service to someone else who had less than I had and who could benefit from what I had to offer. And so I wasn't willing to be afraid in a hole or a box. And so I went to the school. I built the hydroponic system on the 3rd floor. I plugged in plants. I cooked jackfruit. We just did so many different things. We made dinosaur egg plant pots, grew microgreens, made jackfruit tacos, nachos, like just all these different things that were healthy. We made soda out of lemon basil, and just like, you're telling me you made this from the plant that's growing upstairs, Mr. Josh? All right, let me try this. And then I sweetened it with local honey, and I just spent the next year collecting the unemployment and benefits that I was allowed to, and using that as my paycheck. And I'm like, I'm just gonna go in that school and I'm gonna see what happens, and then see what could be built, and if we could do maker workshops.
So you did all this as a volunteer?
Yeah, I did it all as a volunteer. And I used my unemployment money to buy this stuff. Like, we just went on a shopping trip. And then I got grant money to pay youth, 20-something-year-olds, through a different program who are like, I don't want to be locked up. I want to learn what you do, Mr. Josh. And so they got paid to come work with me, and I taught them how to build hydroponics, and we built the hydroponics for the teenagers, and then we did CNC routing at Hack Pittsburgh and laser beam and making and growing. And so through available workforce funds, they were paid, and food was always a part. I would cook these kids all kinds of food. Like, there would be the Instant Pot going and things, and I just wanted them to eat healthy, nutritious food so they'd be ready to work. Be ready to create. So food was always a component of working with. And so, yeah, I worked inside of the school, and then I ran the youth workforce program in the evenings on the weekends. And then I built hydroponics and installed a garden and programming at Voices Against Violence in Beltsuver with Dr. Anderson, where we were serving 100 kids coming out of one of the most difficult neighborhoods in the city of Pittsburgh. And, you know, a lot of them had never eaten a mountain pie, so we got a mountain pie maker, a couple mountain pie makers, and we had a mountain pie workshop, and we did sweet ones, we did savory ones. We got a Penn State hydroponic system to install, and we built that and filled that with plants. We got raised beds from Penn State and mulch, put that in. I grew them seedlings, we put in the seedlings. And we made sun tea. We pickled cucumbers that we made, which was, I don't know, it was a tie between them drinking the sun tea from the herbs that they grew or making and eating pickles. Not one kid said, yes, I want to eat a cucumber, Mr. Josh. Actually, there was a difficulty. That's what I had to overcome. And I'm like, how do I make you want to eat what we grew now? Because most of them, guess what I found most little kids in the hood want to eat? Pickles. And so I had to listen to my population speak to me, and I did. And so got some of them little girls that would be acting up. They're like, want to make some pickles? They're like, yeah, can we make some spicy pickles? I'll be like, yeah, we can make some spicy pickles. And I grew Trinidad scorpions, I grew ghost chili peppers, and I grew Carolina reapers, and I had them dried in a bag to make repellent for the groundhogs, right? And we were mainly growing plants. Groundhogs don't really like tomatoes. They don't care about basil, but they'll eat it if it's there and it's in the front of their face and it looks decent and they see it. And the rabbits too, right? So I make a solution of dish soap for the pests, the blue dish soap, and throw a little bit of the hot pepper stuff and just let that soak overnight. Maybe even it starts to ferment. It smells like soapy hot peppers. And then put that in my spray pump and squirt that all around and on everything. Main focus being on the wood that made up the raised bed around it, so the hot pepper oil can embed, and then just do that every day. And when it rains, make sure we would reapply it, and that kept the groundhogs and the little creepy, all the little ones, away from our tomatoes and our herbs. It worked great. And when they stopped doing that, then the animals ate it. So I brought the peppers in to be a pesticide. Guess what all the kids wanted to eat?
Peppers?
The peppers. They wanted to eat the ghost. So the teenage boys wanted to eat the ghost.
That's just violent.
Guess what else wanted to eat the ghost? They were in age brackets. So one of those, I think the age bracket was like 2-year age groups, 3 years, 11 to 13. So I got 11-year-old girls saying, Mr. Josh, we want to eat the ghost. And I got like 17, 18-year-old, 16-year-old boys, Mr. Josh, we want to eat the ghost. So I tasted it. It's been sitting around for a while. So it was dried, but the heat wasn't the same as like, this is a fresh ghost chili pepper. So I ate like little seed and stuff. I'm like, all right, you ain't gonna die. So like, if you're gonna eat it. So the little girls take it. I got little pieces in my hand. Here's the ghost.
So you chopped up a partially dried out.
It was all 100% dried.
Oh, dried, okay.
Yeah. Gave them the little skin or whatever they grabbed, and then they ate it, and then they ran around circles, and then
yeah.
And then some cried, and then one vomited, and then I'm like, oh my god, I did this. Am I gonna get canned? And like, am I gonna get an angry parent that I just made her dog? Should I have given it to an 11-year-old? But she wanted to eat it, and they said okay. So I'm like, and then they all laughed, and then they came back, and they're like, Mr. Josh, can we have more? And I'm like, except the one that vomited.
The one that vomited, no.
She wanted no more hot peppers. And then the 17-year-old boys, too. But I'll tell you, then we were growing, I implanted in my science classroom some of the hottest peppers in the world growing inside of a big grow tent in deep well systems. And so ghosts were part of it, and they were fresh, and I was growing Thai chilies, and just they went up a ladder. So when I would do it with the young men, they'd be like, I want to try the hot pepper. I ain't worried about that, etc., etc. Being a young man like I would have been. And I definitely I entered competitive hot eating challenges, and I definitely completed my challenges.
When you were a kid? Wow.
No, as a grown-up.
As a grown-up, really?
Hot stuff, yeah, I like eating. I liked eating hot stuff. I had something to prove to myself and others, I guess. Eating hot stuff that definitely ate the metal off of pennies and stuff.
Oh, that doesn't sound
Doesn't sound good. I'm not doing that anymore, but I used to like that stuff. So here, I can appreciate these young men want to do it, but the young men just hype each other to do it, and then the most suggestible one takes their timid taste, and then the big tough one don't eat it at all, and then one gets laughed at when he's like, and then another one might say, I ain't even worried about that, and then they all just want to drink some milk and run away. Well, the young ladies are like, I ain't worried about that. And I'd be like, oh my god, you just ate that whole thing. You should, no, and just put the whole hot pepper with seeds and everything, and just look at me in my face and go, and I just watched her face, like, I just watched the red start, and I see the sweat start on the forehead, and the tears start coming down, and I'm like, I don't think you should have did that. And it's happened numerous times.
What?
Where the young lady just, they've all been okay.
She sweated and cried, but she was fine. She kept the...
Oh, yeah, she kept her composure.
Wow.
Like, multiple, the young ladies would just, like, look at me in defiance, like, I don't want that little piece raw. And then the men would, like, dare each other, and it's so interesting to see that dichotomy. But, yeah, we definitely enjoyed our hot stuff. I built my thing there. It was a lot of work. School only had so much budget. I had some particular ideas, totally workforce related, and really did really fun stuff that was engaging in the classroom, but wasn't really able to maybe necessarily flip it into a sustainable idea. And, after I did my year of volunteering, then the school said, hey, we can pay you to do a workshop day. Give the morning. There's 2 different groups of students because it's an alternative blended school. You only come in person either 3 hours in the morning or 3 hours in the afternoon. So two
Oh, okay.
completely different sets of students.
Mm-hmm.
Here, pick a day, come in, do your workshops. But like, I want to do workshops and harvest stuff and sell it and pay them and teach them laser beams. And we did a lot of stuff. Like, we did so many different vending events where we combined our plants.
So the
and
kids come back after they have other things to do, and they come back and help
Sometimes.
sell stuff. Yeah. So you had
Sometimes,
some
yeah.
kids that
Yeah, sometimes. And that was the goal, but they had so many things going on in real life that the consistency that was required for me with my resources and my understandings to be sustainable in what I had hoped to achieve. And so at this point, it's like, all right, finish 3 years, because I got through that year, 300 a week. And I literally mainly just lived on that and whatever, like just little, not very much extra money. And my unemployment money went a long way. And I just make my art and hustle sometimes, and et cetera, et cetera. Mainly, I dedicate my time and attention to growing plants and establish a maker room in the school. And so combining those two, like, then we got a grant. I wrote a grant, and we were able to build out a kitchenette and just fill it with Belgian waffle maker, pizza oven. I ordered, once we got our budget, I had my idea, I just put together a convection oven, air fryer, instant pot, juicer, electric juicer, manual, like in citrus juicer, the KitchenAid mixer, and with ravioli attachment, I think. And so
Nice.
just all these different things that were mobile and portable and fast and tools that we could use. And then while at Passport, I found a program that now comes in and provides healthy eating classes and workshops on a weekly basis. And so, while being in that school for 3 years, I'm like, well, this is what I could do, but man, this school is super under-resourced, so I want to put some energy into helping them maybe provide some more stuff to these young folks. So that helped them establish an art therapy program and put that together with them and for them with Seton Hill University. So I have art therapy, and then built out the kitchenette and got it stocked with stuff, and taught a bunch of students how to use a Belgian waffle maker, which they now love so much. Like, they just go over the school store to buy a Belgian waffle mix. And then sometimes I bring in special ingredients, or sometimes they bring in their own special Belgian waffle mix. And now the student can stay late and do some work that they might need to do, and they can eat Belgian waffles with the stuff on it, which is better than nothing or spending a little bit of money on whatever.
Yeah.
And that is just like, and then the pizza oven, they had another workshop lady that comes in, and she started using the tools, and she started teaching them how to use the pizza oven, how to make pizza dough. And now my man Yash, who is working at Apteca, who is a James Beard nominated restaurant with the New York Times write-up that's vegan. And Yash is a melanated permaculturist who raps in the video production and fashion. And he's a father of 3 children, and he practices a high vibration life, and he eats right, and he's chefing at one of the top vegetable-based restaurants, and now he's going to take over the grow, and he's going to grow some herbs, select specific things that he has some ideas for, and he'll have that space. And now he gets the budget that I got and the equipment passing on, so that now he can use the framework that I built to do something that I think he's going to be able to do. He's much more organized, more focused, different ideas, much different experiences, got some specific street cred that the kids are going to represent, has some great music, great videos. And so I think, that is then my transition is like, all right, I've been here 3 years, just like being an urban farmer 3 years, or painting steel for 3 years. Or doing
3 is your magic number.
It seems to be the magic number.
Nice.
I just like fully immersed in something for 3 years. I was a maker for 3 years, where I just lived on that, an artist. And so now the next 3 years, I guess, will just be riding a solar-powered electric bicycle to visit eco-communities and herbariums and take 3D models of plants and immortalize them in the blockchain, play plant music, and
That's awesome.
make a podcast and camp with my dog, do things that aren't capitalism, benefit society. And really what's important is I work with a couple companies, Ecotone Renewable. They have a soil conditioner that is created using their smart robotic biodigester that converts our local food waste into a plant nutrient solution that provides soil conditioning. And I really just have been exploring the ideas of regenerative farming and what some of those practices and processes are, which gave me a greater understanding of the need for soil conditioner to complement the fertilizing practice that could be not chemical fertilizer, compost, whatever it is, but that without the right biome like functioning, which a soil conditioner will add through all the life that's in it, that the soil can't really do its job even when you add these extra things. And so being able to bring knowledge and awareness to the branded product and equipment to who knows what small farms or restaurants or municipalities I'll visit that would benefit from accessing their tech. And so it's kind of like being a traveling salesman, which is what I did for years in the industrial, working with steel, to now things that I believed in what I was doing. We were painting bridges so they don't rust and collapse. I mean, geez, we had to do a good job. We had to meet tight specs. I was an E-wide inspector. I did not want to ever have a PennDOT inspector fail my work. I hated that stuff. And I had to pay you prevailing wage to go out on that bridge and fix it, which was a lot. And that was our profit. So It's like, now I believed in that. I believed in lining process vessels so those chemicals didn't leak into our environment, and making sure that all of our wells were properly striped so that the chemicals can't eat through the pinholes and through the tank and contaminate everything. Like, I didn't go for cutting corners. I believed in what I was doing then until I didn't. And now I believe in other things. And so Ecotone Renewables represents one of those other things. So does Pit Moss, Better Home and Garden's #1 rated potting soil that removes peat from the process. And peat's bad. If you don't know about peat, if you're listening, peat's bad. Peel back a peat bog, it's like a power plant, like a whole year of its emissions.
P-E-A-T, not P-E-T-E. We know a lot of peats that we love. Peats aren't bad.
Peat can be dope. But in this case, the peat moss is kind of bad. And so Pit Moss won the Shark Tank, got that Mark Cuban money, and figured out a way to turn cardboard and newspaper into Omri certified growing medium with like compost and manure and stuff. And it's all sterile and great. So being able to share that, and then the music of the plants device, and some other things as I build out an idea of a product suite. This is a new adventure. I just bought the website last week.
Oh, what's it called?
The Plant Pedal Project.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We'll link that for sure.
The plants plus the bike plus the project. So I would like to compile a variety of different technologies that I can share with people on my journey to make their growing better, their life more sustainable from just a human perspective. Like, if we can grow our food in clean soil, then we are just more sustainable as a human being.
Yeah.
And then there's gadgets that can go in your house. And I did a presentation on such things for the Home and Garden show at David L. Lawrence Convention Center. From like a little dishwasher looking thing that can slot in your counter and automatically grow your herbs, to the grow towers and the wall towers and the self-contained things that remove a lot of the effort. And if there's room in the house and the budget, it just makes sense to integrate this into your life and have the fresh organic tomatoes growing right there on your countertop. But if you don't know it exists, then you can't integrate it into your work. And so that is my goal, is to compile these technologies and journey and share them with other people that could benefit, and hopefully some other larger technologies that would benefit municipalities, and go into figuring out everything that's important to me and what I love, and make it into something that at least my dog gets to eat decent dog food. And I literally, Shelly, eat weeds and like mushrooms I pick off logs. So I mean, I don't want to live like that. I'm not that primitive. But as long as we don't have to be too cold or like very wet for very long, I'm cool.
Well, I look forward to seeing all that you do, and looking forward to your podcast and to check out your website.
Eventually.
Thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Sure. Thank you.
Was written, produced, and hosted by me, Shelly Danko Day. Original theme music is by Paula Breeze and Friends. Thanks for listening. See you next time.